Jeremy John Wade entered the world on March 23, 1956, in the peaceful countryside near Ipswich, Suffolk, England. His father served as a village vicar, while his mother worked as a teacher. Growing up in a quiet rural environment, Jeremy developed a fascination that would shape the rest of his life. Instead of chasing excitement, he often spent hours sitting beside small rivers, silently observing the flowing water and wondering what hidden creatures lived beneath the surface. The rivers around Suffolk were far from spectacular. They were narrow, slow-moving streams winding through farmland before eventually reaching the North Sea. Their waters were home to familiar British fish such as pike, perch, and roach, species most local anglers considered ordinary. Yet for young Jeremy, these humble waterways became an open-air classroom where his lifelong obsession with freshwater life first began. He carefully watched herons hunting with incredible precision and kingfishers plunging into the water like arrows. Tiny ripples and subtle movements on the river's surface fascinated him because they revealed the unseen activity below. More importantly, those countless quiet hours taught him extraordinary patience, a quality that would later allow him to spend days, sometimes weeks, in remote and dangerous locations waiting for a single chance to encounter fish that many people believed were nothing more than legends. As his passion for wildlife grew stronger, Jeremy enrolled at the University of Bristol, where he studied zoology. He graduated in 1976, earning qualifications that allowed him to become a biology teacher. Although teaching became his profession, animals and rivers remained his true calling. During the following decade, while teaching biology at a secondary school in Kent, nearly every weekend and school holiday was dedicated to fishing and studying freshwater ecosystems. Instead of focusing only on European fish, Jeremy immersed himself in books and scientific reports about giant freshwater species living in distant tropical rivers. Stories from the Amazon, the Mekong, the Ganges, and other remote waterways captured his imagination. He became determined to see these incredible creatures with his own eyes. That opportunity arrived in 1982 during a personal expedition to India. The journey was never intended to launch a career, but it changed everything. There, Jeremy landed his first golden mahseer, one of the world's most powerful freshwater fish. Closely related to carp, this remarkable species can grow beyond 100 pounds in the cold, fast-flowing rivers of the Himalayas. Anglers often compare its strength and endurance to legendary saltwater game fish because of its relentless fight once hooked. For Jeremy, catching that single fish was far more than an unforgettable angling achievement. It completely transformed the way he viewed the world's rivers. He realized that freshwater systems were filled with enormous predators and mysterious species that most people had never heard of. Hidden beneath seemingly ordinary water were animals capable of astonishing size, unique adaptations, and hunting behaviors that remained almost unknown outside small scientific circles. From that moment onward, Jeremy made it his mission to search for these forgotten giants. Long before television audiences recognized his name, he had already spent decades exploring some of the most remote rivers on Earth. His career was built not in front of cameras but through years of difficult expeditions across 6 continents, often working alone in harsh environments where success depended entirely on patience, knowledge, and determination. In 1992, he co-authored his first book, Somewhere Down the Crazy River, alongside Paul Boot. The book chronicled their search for the elusive Indian mahseer and combined detailed natural history with the excitement of real exploration. Although it never became a mainstream bestseller, it earned deep respect among dedicated anglers, expedition fishermen, and freshwater researchers who understood how little humanity truly knew about the world's great river systems. For the next 15 years, Jeremy continued traveling largely outside the public spotlight. He ventured into the vast rivers of the Amazon, Congo, Ganges, Mekong, Northern Australia, Central Africa, and Southeast Asia. Each expedition expanded his understanding of freshwater ecosystems and uncovered remarkable species that reinforced a simple truth: Earth's rivers still held countless mysteries waiting to be discovered. He contracted malaria multiple times. He survived a plane crash in the Amazon basin when the small aircraft he was traveling in went down in remote jungle. He was arrested and detained on suspicion of espionage in Southeast Asia, a consequence of asking too many questions in areas where governments did not welcome foreign attention. He nearly drowned. He was bitten, stung, shocked, and infected by organisms that most people never encounter. He kept fishing. In 2007, Icon Films, a Bristol-based production company run by Harry Marshall, produced a BBC documentary called Jungle Fish featuring Wade's work. The documentary was the proof of concept. It demonstrated that Wade's combination of scientific credibility, physical courage, and genuine storytelling ability could translate to television. 2 years later, River Monsters premiered on Animal Planet. The premise was specific. Jeremy Wade would travel to remote waterways across the world. He would investigate accounts of human deaths, disappearances, and serious injuries in those waters. He would attempt to catch alive on rod and line the specific animals responsible. For the next 9 seasons, that is what he did. He fished the Amazon, the Congo, the Mekong, the Ganges, the Yenisei, the Murray-Darling, the Limpopo, and the remote Arctic rivers of northern Canada and Siberia. He fished lakes, inlets, and tidal estuaries on every continent the format would let him reach. The series ran for 9 seasons and 127 episodes. It made Jeremy Wade the most recognizable freshwater biologist on Earth, and it documented encounters with animals that, had they been fictional, would have been dismissed as implausible. And by the time the series formally concluded in 2017, the cumulative private record of what Jeremy Wade had personally encountered, both on and off camera, was substantially larger than what 9 seasons of broadcast television had been able to show. The encounters that did make air are, by every measure of his own subsequent statements, not the encounters that have stayed with him. The animals he has now publicly described as the ones he genuinely thinks about, the ones he considers categorically different from the rest, the ones he uses a specific word for when he is asked directly, were not the headline catches the broadcast cuts built episodes around. They were the encounters he kept quiet about. They were the ones the production team chose not to highlight. They were the ones the most credentialed living freshwater biologist on television has, for nearly 2 decades, declined to discuss in detail. He has now decided to discuss them. The reasons he waited. The specific category of threat he believes the public has not been adequately warned about. And what one man who has spent 6 decades on the water has finally decided the rest of us should know about what is actually happening in the rivers, lakes, and coastal estuaries of the modern world. The career was real. The encounters were real. What he is now finally saying about them is the part of the story he spent 2 decades carefully not putting on the air. To understand what Jeremy Wade has encountered, and why his assessment of the most dangerous creatures in freshwater carries weight, that most opinions on the subject do not, you first have to understand the specific animals he has faced, and the physical toll that facing them has extracted. The Goliath tigerfish of the Congo River Basin is, by Wade's own assessment, one of the most impressive predators he has ever encountered. It is a fish that grows to over 5 ft in length and can exceed 150 lb. Its teeth are interlocking daggers, each one over an inch long, designed for gripping and tearing prey in the fast, turbid waters of the Congo system. The teeth are so prominent, so visibly dangerous, that the Goliath tigerfish looks like something designed by a horror film creature, shop rather than by evolution. But evolution designed it. The Congo River is the deepest river on Earth, exceeding 700 ft in places. It is the second largest by volume, carrying more water than any river except the Amazon. Its currents are violent, its visibility near zero, its ecology almost entirely unstudied by Western science. The Goliath tigerfish is the apex predator of the system. It has been documented attacking humans. It has been documented attacking crocodiles. It hunts in water so murky that visibility is measured in inches, detecting prey through lateral line pressure sensitivity, and attacking with speed that leaves no time for reaction. Wade caught one on rod and line in the Congo, a fish that fought with a violence unlike anything he had experienced in decades of fishing. The battle lasted over an hour. The fish nearly pulled him from the boat multiple times. When he finally landed it, the animal continued snapping its jaws with enough force to sever fingers. The encounter made spectacular television. It was not, by Wade's subsequent assessment, the most dangerous thing he encountered in that river. The bull shark episodes revealed something about freshwater danger that most viewers did not fully absorb. Bull sharks are not freshwater fish. They are marine sharks, apex oceanic predators capable of growing to over 11 ft and exceeding 500 lb. They possess the same basic body plan as great whites and tiger sharks, streamlined, powerful, designed for pursuit and attack. But bull sharks possess a physiological adaptation that most sharks do not. They can osmoregulate, adjusting their internal chemistry to survive in fresh water for extended periods. Bull sharks have been documented thousands of miles up the Amazon. They have been documented in the Mississippi River as far north as Illinois. They have been documented in Lake Nicaragua, in the Ganges, in the Brisbane River, in virtually every major tropical and subtropical river system, that to the ocean. And they attack people. The bull shark is responsible for more documented attacks on humans than any shark species except the great white and the tiger shark. Many researchers believe it is actually responsible for more attacks than either, because many bull shark attacks occur in murky river water where the species is not identified. And because bull sharks frequent the shallow, warm, low-visibility waters where humans are most likely to swim. Wade's investigation of attacks in freshwater environments produced some of the most disturbing footage in river monsters history. He traveled to rivers where attacks had occurred. He interviewed survivors who bore the scars of encounters they barely survived. He documented the presence of large bull sharks in waters that local populations had used for bathing, washing, and fishing for generations. Rivers where children swam. Rivers where women washed clothes. Rivers where no one had any idea that a large oceanic predator was hunting. The Paraiba catfish of the Amazon basin represents a different category of danger. The Paraiba, also known as the lau lau, is one of the largest freshwater fish in the world. It can exceed 10 ft in length and 400 lbs in weight. It is a catfish. It does not have the teeth of a tigerfish or the predatory reputation of a shark. But the Paraiba has been documented as a man-eater. The Amazon contains accounts, collected over centuries by indigenous communities and colonial observers alike, of Paraiba attacking and consuming humans, particularly children and smaller adults who enter the water in areas where large Paraiba congregate. The mechanism is not biting in the conventional sense. The Paraiba is a suction feeder. It opens its enormous mouth and creates a vacuum that pulls prey inward. Once inside the mouth, prey is held by thousands of small, backward-pointing teeth that line the jaws and pharynx. A Paraiba large enough to fit a human child in its mouth is large enough to drown that child before anyone can intervene. Wade caught Paraiba in the Amazon. He documented the accounts of attacks. He confirmed that the stories told by local fishermen were not folklore. They were accurate descriptions of a predator that Westerners had largely dismissed as a harmless bottom feeder. The goonch catfish of the Himalayan rivers presented a similar pattern. The goonch, a massive catfish of the Kali River system on the border between India and Nepal, had been blamed by local communities for a series of fatal attacks on humans. The accounts described people being dragged underwater and drowned. Their bodies recovered with injuries, consistent with something large gripping and pulling them down. Wade investigated. He caught goonch catfish of extraordinary size, animals exceeding 6 ft in length and 150 lbs in weight. He confirmed that the river contained predators capable of the attacks described. And he documented something else. The goonch had learned to feed on human remains. The Kali River is used for Hindu funeral practices. Bodies are cremated on the riverbank, and remains are committed to the water as part of the religious ritual. The goonch over generations had learned to associate humans with food. The attacks were not random predation. They were the result of a trained behavior, a catfish population that had been trained by human religious practice to view humans as prey. The electric eel nearly killed him. Electric eels are not true eels. They are knife fish, air-breathing freshwater fish native to the Amazon and Orinoco basins that can generate electrical discharges of up to 860 volts. The discharge is used for hunting, navigation, and defense. A full discharge from a large electric eel can incapacitate a horse. It can stop a human heart. Wade was shocked by an electric eel during filming, an encounter he has described in his books and in interviews as one of the most physically overwhelming experiences of his life. The shock caused his muscles to contract involuntarily, his vision to white out, and he lost motor control while standing in water. The danger was not the shock itself, it was drowning. When an electric eel discharges in water, anyone in contact with that water receives the shock. The shock causes involuntary muscle contraction. The muscle contraction causes loss of motor control. Loss of motor control in water causes drowning. The electric eel kills not through electrocution, but through the drowning that electrocution facilitates. Wade survived because the water was shallow enough that he could keep his head above the surface while his muscles spasmed. In deeper water, he would not have survived. The arapaima of the Amazon is one of the largest freshwater fish on Earth, exceeding 10 ft in length and 400 lb in weight. It is an air breather, surfacing every 10 to 20 minutes to gulp atmospheric oxygen. It is not, by conventional assessment, dangerous to humans. But the arapaima has a defensive behavior that has injured and killed people throughout its range. When threatened, the arapaima can launch itself from the water with explosive force. The fish's body is armored with scales so hard that indigenous peoples traditionally use them as tools and arrow points. A 400 lb fish, armored and moving at speed, striking a person in a small boat or in shallow water, can break bones, cause internal injuries, and knock victims unconscious into the water to drown. Wade caught arapaima. He documented the injuries they had caused. He confirmed again that animals dismissed by Western science as harmless were producing human casualties that local communities had been recording for generations. The Wels catfish of European rivers challenged assumptions about what could live close to home. The Wels is native to the river systems of Central and Eastern Europe, the Danube, the Volga, the Dnieper, the Po, and the Ebro. Rivers that flow through some of the most densely populated regions of the continent. It can exceed 15 ft in length and 660 lbs in weight. It is the largest purely freshwater fish in Europe and one of the largest in the world. The Wels has been documented attacking humans. Historical accounts from medieval and early modern Europe describe Wels catfish large enough to swallow children whole. Modern accounts, more conservatively documented, describe Wels attacking swimmers, biting limbs, and dragging people underwater. Wade investigated the Wels in multiple European river systems. He caught specimens of extraordinary size. He confirmed that the medieval accounts, often dismissed as superstition, were describing real events involving real animals that still exist in European rivers today. Rivers that flow through major cities. Rivers where people swim and boat and fish without any awareness of what lives beneath them. The Mekong giant catfish of Southeast Asia is critically endangered, but specimens still exist that can exceed 10 ft and 60 lb. The Yenisei taimen of Siberia, a giant salmonid that Wade pursued in some of the most remote waters on Earth, represents another category of apex freshwater predator, a fish that dominates rivers so cold and isolated that few humans have ever seen one. The Murray cod of Australia, the alligator gar of the American South with its armored scales and needle teeth, the payara, the vampire fish with its 6 fangs that protrude from its lower jaw. Wade caught them all. He documented them all. He built, over 4 decades, the most comprehensive first-hand knowledge base of dangerous freshwater animals that any single human being has ever assembled. His follow-up series continued the work. Mighty Rivers came out in 2018. Jeremy Wade's Dark Waters came out in 2019. Mysteries of the Deep aired in 2020 and 2021. Each series expanded the scope, moving beyond pure monster hunting toward broader questions about freshwater ecosystems and what is happening to them. When asked, after all of it, what the most evil creatures he has encountered actually are, the ones that keep him awake, the ones he considers categorically different from everything else, his answer is not what most people expect. It is not the Goliath tigerfish. It is not the bull shark. It is not the piraiba, or the electric eel, or the arapaima, or any of the animals that made river monsters famous. The most evil creatures Jeremy Wade has encountered are not fish at all. They are the ones who are killing the fish. They are us. What Jeremy Wade has witnessed over 6 decades on the water is not merely a catalog of dangerous animals. It is the systematic destruction of the freshwater ecosystems those animals depend on. The mahseer that drew him to India in 1982 are now critically endangered. Their populations collapsed because of dam construction, pollution, overfishing, and habitat destruction. The Mekong giant catfish he pursued in Southeast Asia may be functionally extinct within decades. The victim of hydroelectric development that has transformed one of the world's most productive river systems into a series of fragmented reservoirs. The Amazon, the Congo, the Ganges, and the rivers of Europe, Asia, Africa, and Australia. Every major system Wade has fished over 40 years are in worse condition now than they were when he started. The animals are disappearing. They are not disappearing because humans are hunting them systematically. They are disappearing because humans are destroying the water they live in. Wade has spoken about this in interviews, in his books, and in his follow-up series that have focused increasingly on conservation rather than simply catching fish. The tone has shifted. The mission has shifted. The man who spent 9 seasons catching river monsters is now spending his remaining years trying to explain why those monsters are vanishing. Pollution is the obvious villain. Industrial effluent pours into rivers across the developing world, carrying heavy metals, chemical solvents, and manufacturing waste. Agricultural runoff carries pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers that create dead zones where nothing can survive. Plastic waste accumulates in river systems worldwide, breaking into microparticles that enter the food chain at every level. Raw sewage flows untreated into rivers that supply drinking water to millions. Wade has seen rivers he fished in the 1980s rendered biologically dead by the 2020s. He has seen fish populations collapse in real time, not over geological timescales, but over the span of a single human career. He has watched species disappear. Dams are the less visible villain. Hydroelectric development has fragmented river systems across the world. Fish that evolved to migrate, that require access to spawning grounds upstream and feeding grounds downstream, have been cut off from the habitats they need to complete their life cycles. The Mekong is being dammed into oblivion. The Amazon faces similar pressure. The rivers of the American West, already stressed by drought, are further compromised by dams that have eliminated the historical salmon runs that once fed entire ecosystems. The Yangtze River dolphin is already extinct, the first dolphin species driven to extinction by human activity. The Chinese paddlefish, one of the largest freshwater fish on Earth, was declared extinct in 2020. The species Wade has spent his life pursuing are following the same trajectory. Climate change compounds everything. Rivers are warming. Flow patterns are shifting. Species adapted to specific temperature ranges are finding those ranges contracting, disappearing, moving beyond their reach. The cold water species Wade pursued in Siberia and Canada face habitat loss that no conservation effort can fully address. The warming is baked in. The consequences are arriving. The evil Wade describes is not the evil of a predator attacking prey. That is nature. That is the system functioning as it evolved to function. A Goliath tigerfish killing a fish is not evil. A bull shark attacking a swimmer is not evil. These are animals doing what their biology compels them to do. The evil he describes is the evil of destruction without necessity, the casual elimination of ecosystems for short-term profit, the poisoning of waters for convenience, the fragmentation of rivers for electricity that could be generated other ways. The Goliath tigerfish is not evil. It is a predator doing what predators do, killing to eat. Every creature in a river exists for one reason: to survive. Predators hunt because evolution designed them to. They are not cruel, malicious, or evil. They simply fulfill the role nature assigned to them over millions of years. Jeremy Wade has spent a lifetime proving that truth. In his eyes, a giant predator is never the villain. The real danger comes from something far more deliberate. When toxic chemicals are poured into the Congo, that is not nature at work. It is a human decision. When massive dams alter the Mekong while officials ignore or deny the environmental damage, that is not survival. It is a choice. Rivers do not destroy themselves. People do. That, according to Wade, is the difference. Fish act on instinct. Humans act with awareness, and too often they choose actions that permanently damage the ecosystems they depend on. Now in his late 60s, Jeremy Wade has spent more than half a century exploring freshwater environments across the globe. Few people have witnessed as many rivers, or spent as much time studying what lives beneath their surfaces. After decades of expeditions, scientific observation, and first-hand experience, he has reached a conclusion that surprises many people. The greatest threat hiding in a river is not the creature beneath the water. It is the moment that creature disappears. A river without its largest predators may appear calm and safe, but that silence often signals a much deeper crisis. Throughout nature, apex predators are indicators of a healthy ecosystem. Their survival depends on abundant prey, clean water, and a balanced food web. When these giants vanish, it usually means the entire ecological system supporting them is beginning to fail. Wade often points to species such as the Goliath tigerfish in the Congo as an example. As long as such a powerful predator continues to thrive, it demonstrates that the river is still functioning as a living ecosystem capable of supporting countless other forms of life. But if that predator disappears, it is rarely an isolated event. It is evidence that something much larger has gone wrong. The same warning applies to nearly every remarkable fish Jeremy has pursued during his career. The arapaima, pirariba, Mekong giant catfish, Murray cod, golden mahseer, and taimen are far more than extraordinary catches. They serve as biological warning systems, revealing the health of the rivers they inhabit. Their decline is a signal. Their extinction would be proof that humanity ignored every warning nature provided. For decades, Jeremy traveled the world documenting creatures that most people would never have the opportunity to see. Today, many of those recordings carry a different meaning. What once served as thrilling wildlife adventures are increasingly becoming historical records of species and habitats that may not survive much longer. Future generations may watch those expeditions the same way people today read about rivers once overflowing with salmon. Stories that sound almost impossible because the reality has nearly disappeared. In many places, those legendary fish populations are already gone. Wade fears many freshwater giants could eventually share the same fate. After nearly 60 years of studying rivers, Jeremy has come to believe that the most destructive force he has ever encountered does not swim beneath the surface. It walks on land. It builds dams without protecting ecosystems. It pollutes waterways for economic gain. It replaces living rivers with industrial waste and calls the result development. In only a few generations, humanity has managed to damage ecosystems that required millions of years to evolve naturally. The creatures often labeled as river monsters were never the true threat. They were essential parts of nature's balance. The real danger has always been human decisions driven by short-term profit, rather than long-term preservation. That is the message Jeremy Wade now shares more urgently than ever. His life's work is no longer simply about catching extraordinary fish. It is about reminding the world why they deserve to survive. Every expedition, every photograph, and every filmed encounter has become evidence of what Earth's freshwater systems once looked like before they began disappearing. The rivers gave Jeremy Wade a lifetime of discovery, purpose, and adventure. In return, he has devoted his later years to speaking on their behalf before more species fade into memory. The fish he encountered were real. The ecosystems that supported them were real. The damage threatening them is equally real. And if there is one lesson he hopes people remember, it is this. The greatest threat facing the world's rivers is not the predators living beneath the water, but the species staring back at us every morning in the mirror.